Yu-Gi-Oh! We all remember Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe you remember it from the card game, or maybe you remember from the show. I used to wake up, watch Yu-Gi-Oh! All the time growing up. I used to watch Kaiba versus Yugi, Merrick versus Yugi, Pegasus versus Yugi. Or maybe you're a GX fan, you remember Jaden versus Zane, or Jaden versus Chaz. All the great moments in Yu-Gi-Oh! But maybe you guys don't keep up with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still huge, but not too many people keep up with playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But for 2 months, I decided to play modern Yu-Gi-Oh! In the form of Master Duel. Now, when I played Master Duel, my expectations were crazy far from what I actually thought modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Was, because all the experience I had from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Was just going to school and playing with my friends with the cards I got from Walmart, and I just pulled from packs and just random box sets and starter packs, right? So I had no knowledge going in. All I had played is a bit of the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, you know, with like basic monsters where my monster's stronger, Unga Boonga, I destroy your monster. But let me tell you about the experience I went through by playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it was definitely an experience. So as you can see here, I'm on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which is pretty much the most accessible way to play modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously, you can go to like your local card shop and they have a tournament and play there. But, you know, I'm not doing that. I play video games, and Master Duel was the closest thing to, you know, playing it online and playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And as you can see right here in the corner, I am a Plat 3. And I'll show you my ranks from the previous seasons to show you like kind of my qualifications. As you can see, I have been Plat 2 for 2 seasons before this current one, because this current one has only been around for I think 10 days, not that much, but each season is usually like a month. So you can see I played for 2 months and I'm on to my 3rd month. Obviously you can see I played a while back, which was like, I don't know how long ago this was, but obviously you could see that I was not playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I was playing Unga Munga Caveman Yu-Gi-Oh! So I did not know much about Yu-Gi-Oh! And what better way to show you my Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge by pulling up a deck and just showing you the cards that I knew from my childhood and pretty much all the things I knew about Yu-Gi-Oh! Going into Master Duel, just so I can lay out my knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh! Very loose knowledge in quotation marks of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Let me move my camera up here so you guys can see the cards. So every card in this deck, I'm going to be showing you my Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge. Obviously, I knew about the Egyptian God cards. I knew about Blue Eyes. I knew about Dark Magician. I did not know about Neos. I did not grow up watching GX. In fact, I was a Zexal watcher. So, you know, I grew up in the Xyz era and the Pendulum era. Very loosely Pendulum. The beginning of Pendulum was when I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! When I stopped playing with my friends. So Utopia was a pretty big, he was my Dark Magician growing up. Obviously people grew up with, you know, like Neos. I grew up with a Utopia, and I grew up with Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. I actually own an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon growing up, and he was one of my favorite cards in the game. Did I know how to Pendulum Summon? No, not really, but you know, I kind of knew the gist. You put like a 4 and a 6, and then every 5s you can summon, stuff like that, pretty much basic stuff. But besides that, I knew nothing. I knew about fusions, I knew about normal summoning, I knew about Xyz. That's it. I knew about synchros, but I wasn't really watching 5Gs at the time, so I was not a big fan of synchro summoning. And you might be wondering, what was the deck that I went into playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! With? Well, I actually currently have the deck. Now, letting you know, I did play a bit of Duel Links like when I was like 14, so I kind of knew what was meta in Duel Links, and I decided to, let's bring a meta deck from Duel Links into modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And I didn't realize playing old Duel Links decks were not the best option. This is my Sure Nui deck. Now, you might be looking at it and be like, oh, this is a pretty solid deck. This was not the deck I was running at first. Obviously, you can see it. I have a couple of dismantles because, you know, I don't really play this deck anymore because it's just not that very good. Obviously, this is like kind of like the end results. I reached Plat 5, which is like the rank you reach before, like if you lose you actually go down a rank. So pretty much this was the rank, this is what got me to Plat 5. This is kind of what carried me all the way there, and I thought I was a god gamer running these Shuniri decks, and I didn't. You can see Link Monsters, and I'll explain my experience with Link Monsters because I had no idea what Link Monsters was going into modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And it is pretty much like the meta in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Link, if you don't have a Link Monster in your deck's probably not that good. So let's backtrack right here. Okay, first off, the deck I was probably running was this, right? Obviously, I did not have like the good cards that you see here. I just had the basic Shiranui deck. Pretty much it's, I normal summon this, and I can bring out this card right here, and then I can secret summon into one of my favorite cards that I was playing in Duel Links, Shiranui Saga. This was like one of my favorite cards, and it's still one of my favorite cards to this day. I love this card, and if you want to know why I like this card so much, I don't know. I just think it's a cool card. It just looks like a cool art and all that. But pretty much, I was running basic Shiranui. I added Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord because I was like, oh, Red Eyes and a synchro monster that I can summon, let me put into this deck. So obviously, I had a very noob mentality. When I was getting to Modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I have to talk about Maxi. Maxi, the definition of Modern Yu-Gi-Oh. Someone special summons a monster, you get a draw, right? If you activate this. And I know this card is very controversial when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, because you're like, oh, you can draw a card when you special summon. When I went into Master Duel, I was pretty much like a sponge. I was absorbing all the knowledge of Maxi. So if I think it's controversial, I don't hate this card. I don't really have a strong opinion either or. I know some people really hate this card and really dislike this card, and some people really love this card. I'm just on the fence. I've kind of played Master Duel this whole entire time with Max CC. I don't know why I say Max CC. That's what I just say. But I know some people who play the TCG, the real card game, since Master Duel is kind of one of the only versions of a Yu-Gi-Oh that allows Max CC besides the OCG. This card is like a card people don't like playing against in Master Duel. The Master Duel meta is all revolved around Maxi. If you don't have 2 card buys and 3 ashes and 3 Maxis in your deck, you're probably not winning the game. Obviously, you can see I did not know what Called by the Grave was when I first started out. That's why I don't have it in this deck. And at first I was like, why is this card so powerful? And then I didn't realize how powerful this card was. But obviously you can see my Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge was pretty low. Obviously you probably want to hear me talk about what are like the cool modern cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? If you're watching this and you haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh and you're just kind of interested in what's going on in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I learned very fast that Raigeki is still pretty solid, but you know, not the best card in the game. I still run Harpy's Feather Duster in some of my decks, but you know, I would say it's one of the old cards that's still pretty good. And when I played Master Duel, and I was playing Duel Links like years before this, Monster Reborn was banned in Duel Links. So when I played Master Duel and I saw that Monster Reborn was not banned, I would put this in every deck I played. I thought Monster Reborn was like the most broken card in the game. I'm like, oh, they allowed Monster Reborn? I'm gonna play this card. And another card that I thought was so broken was Mirror Force. Mirror Force was a card that was also banned in Duel Links, and you know, I never got to see play, so I don't know if it's unbanned, because you know, I hear Duel Links is kind of a lot like modern Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays. But once I heard Mirror Force wasn't banned in Master Duel, I was like, I gotta put this in every deck. So when I first run this Shiranui deck, I had Mirror Force in literally every deck I played. Whether it was like another random rogue deck I was playing, Mirror Force in my mind was so broken because, you know, someone attacks a monster, I destroy all their monsters at an attack position. That's so broken. And maybe when I was in bronze rank and rookie rank and silver rank, this card was actually good in my mind, but I do not play this card anymore. This card is a card that I do not have in any of my decks. Obviously, this is like kind of my most complete deck when it comes to the zombie deck. It's not that great, but Mirror Force is a very great card in my deck. There's so many cards starting off that I was like, I have to play this card because, you know, it was my favorite when I was growing up. Other cards like that was like, let me see if I can find any cards like that. Galaxy Eyes. Galaxy Eyes was my favorite card growing up because I grew up in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal era. I thought Galaxy Eyes was one of the coolest dragons. You know, he was up there with Blue Eyes for me. I thought he was so cool, so I had him in so many of my decks. Let me see what other cards did I have when I was just coming back into the game. I also had Utopia a lot in my decks because I just thought Utopia was, he's just like the Dark Magician of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, so I was like, I have to put this card in my game because, you know, 2 level 4 monsters, I can do that with every deck, so I literally just put them in every deck that I played. So there's a lot of cards that I came back that I realized that weren't good, and then I learned a lot of cards that were good, like Baron de Fleur. You know, she can negate like anything, and is one of the best boss monsters in the game, just very generic. Also, when I came back to Master Duel, I started watching all the other animes to kind of like catch up on modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I wanted to learn like what was the new Dark Magician in like some of the other animes. So I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and I kind of like liked Flame Wingman, and I liked Phoenix Enforcer and Aster Phoenix and all those cards. Then I grew to like Elemental Hero Neos and all the other cool monsters like Stardust Dragon and all those type of characters. I even have a prismatic Stardust Dragon that I think I got for an anniversary. It was a special event and I got it. I don't remember what event it was, but I got it somehow. So that's one of my glossy finishes, along with Sky Striker, which I don't play Sky Striker, so it doesn't matter. But either way, I bet you want to know what are the decks that I run now. because obviously play modern Yu-Gi-Oh now, so now I kind of understand, and you guys kind of want to hear my thoughts on like the modern state of Yu-Gi-Oh if you haven't played it, or maybe you play modern Yu-Gi-Oh and you want to know what are my thoughts on it, a newbie's thoughts. I would consider myself a zoomer when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh because I kind of knew what the pendulum mechanic was and I knew what the Xyz mechanics was growing up. So when I hear people saying GOAT format is nostalgic for them, I don't really find it nostalgic because I didn't grow up in that era. I grew up when Odd Eyes was out. So summoning Odd Eyes and, you know, playing Unga Bunga, you know, I set up 2 pendulum scales and I summoned a bunch of monsters and I summoned my Odd Eyes. That's old Yu-Gi-Oh for me. But obviously old Yu-Gi-Oh is, you know, GOAT format for some people when they just summon Dark Magician and they win the game, or they summon Blue Eyes and they win the game, or they summon Skull beat down and all that type of stuff. But this is the deck I like to play nowadays. It's called the D/D deck. I just like it because it reminds me so much of Fate Grand Order, and I'm a huge Fate Grand Order fan. So obviously I have Cursed Siegfried, and these are all just kind of like mythological monsters like Gilgamesh. Like Gilgamesh, this card is very reminiscent of like Fate Grand Order and the Fate series, about how Gilgamesh has so many weapons, and I think Final Fantasy also does that, but Gilgamesh is more iconic in the Fate verse, and they actually give him an explanation to why he holds so many weapons, because, you know, he's the original hero and pretty much every hero is inspired after him, so that means he owns all the heroes' weapons. Let me talk about the current meta nowadays. Obviously Kashichiros are very popular. Kashichiro was a Rise Art is coming out soon, and I keep up with the leak, so, you know, I'm interested to see it. I might play it a bit. Obviously you can see I have Kashichiro cards, but I don't really play pure Kashichiro. The only reason I have Kashichiro cards is because it works alongside my Armed Dragon deck, and I love Armed Dragon, and they're just kind of like an extra engine to keep this Armed Dragon deck running. So I don't really play meta cards that much. I don't play Pearly. I don't play Labyrinth. I tried playing Pearly, and then I lost love for the game for like a bit. I'm like, why am I building this deck? Am I having fun? And that's what I think about all like meta players. And if you're playing like tier players, and if you're playing like these top tier decks and you're not having fun, like Dragon Link and Purely, like, why are you playing this game? Play some fun decks. Like, even though I know this Armed Dragon deck is not the best deck ever, I still play it because it's fun. And my DD deck, I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's pretty like strong meta competitive. It gets me to Diamond 2. It gets me to Platinum 2, and if I maybe grind it a bit harder, I could get to what's it called, Diamond, or I don't know if I could ever get a champion. Maybe I can get a champion, but that will require a lot of grinding to get there, and maybe I would have to adjust some of my decks and make some better decks. But either way, my thoughts on modern Yu-Gi-Oh. I just kind of want to give my consensus of what I think of modern Yu-Gi-Oh. I like it. I love modern Yu-Gi-Oh. When people say, oh, I love GOAT format, I love Edison format, those are great formats of Yu-Gi-Oh. But like when you play those forms of Yu-Gi-Oh, like they kind of get boring once you run like a Blackluster Soldier Envoy beginning deck for like the 10th time. Like, let's play some new decks. And when you look at some of the GOAT formats, there's very few decks where you're just like, all right, we run out of cards. But with modern Yu-Gi-Oh, there's so many cards in this game that you can build any deck with you want. If you want to build a Dark Magician deck, you can build it. If you want to build a hero deck, you can build it. If you want to build a Punk deck, or Shiranui deck, or Stardust Dragon deck, or whatever deck you want to build, a Blackluster Soldier deck, you can build it. There's a way you can build it, and that's what I love about modern Yu-Gi-Oh, is that if you're just good enough, you can make a deck work. But finally, the last thing I want to touch on this video is link monsters, which are the mechanic that I did not know about coming back to the game. Obviously, I did not watch Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, so I had no idea what link monster was. I actually own a couple link monsters when I was younger. I did not know what link monster was. I was going back through my old cards, and I'm like, I own link monsters. So when I was collecting monsters, I actually owned a link monsters. So maybe they were around when I was here, when I was still kind of playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but I don't remember using link monsters at all. So I had no knowledge of link monsters. In my opinion, I am not too huge of a fan. I love the idea of link monsters, and they support so many archetypes that, like, they support so many decks that wouldn't be good if they didn't have these link monsters. And a lot of these link monsters work with any deck. So if like I run Shiranui, I could somehow put Access Kotalker in. That deck is just gonna end up in Access Kotalker, and pretty much like any deck can work with link monsters. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's not my favorite summoning mechanic. My favorite summoning mechanics are probably like Synchros and Xyz. Those are my 2 favorite summoning mechanics. Pendulums, I know a lot of people hate pendulum monsters, but you know, I think they're fine. I think some decks of pendulum monsters are fine, but like some other decks are just kind of lame. If they're not running, if they don't look cool like my DD deck, I am not interested in pendulum monsters. But besides that, I kind of want to know your thoughts about like me, a new player coming into like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And I'm probably going to make more videos about Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I just love Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been addicted to this game for a while now, for these 2 months, and I just can't stop playing it. I just wanted to share my experience with, like older players or even newer players who want to know what's going on in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like an older player who wants to kind of get a new perspective on what modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of like, going in to a person who has like a very base knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't really find it too hard like other people do, maybe because I don't play other card games like Magic or Hearthstone, so I'm very like much of a sponge and I can just absorb the knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh! But I kind of want to know your thoughts on my thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! So let me know down in the comments, and hope to see you guys next time. Later. Peace.